You got that started, so we're gonna call the meeting to order. I want to confirm with staff based on the people we have in the room that we have a quorum.
Right.
Okay, so quorum to chief.
6.
We've got 6 community members in the room, and we have Larry Hall with us online. We're still expecting some more, so there may be some folks come in a little bit late. And so that will pull those together. The first thing we typically do every meeting is, and I should note that because Mr. Hall is online, and also because we have a letter of resignation from a committee member that Mr. Salva, you'll be able to vote today. So Mr. Salva is our alternate member. So with that in mind, first thing we typically do is approve the agenda. So do we have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve the
Okay,
agenda.
James has moved approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Janet Her. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If we do get anyone else who joins us from the public online, we'll allow for questions where it's appropriate. The chair will recognize it where it's appropriate. So with that, we'll get into our agenda. So we've approved it, and there's been a slight change. So Ramon is with us online, so we're going to make a slight shift on the agenda, and Ken and I discussed this as well. So one of the first things we're supposed to do is to elect officers, and I believe the bylaws say indicate as soon as possible after October 1.
Correct.
So Ken, let's turn it over that. Let's flip and get the election of officers out of the way. And
Okay, and I'll introduce George Bells, who's one of our new members here in
Okay.
person. So he's in the position residing in the unincorporated area outside the urban cluster. He was appointed by the county commission to a 3-year term that began October 1st and runs for 3 years through September 2025. So welcome, George Bells.
Thank you.
would you like to say anything else, George, about your background, your interest?
Well, not really. I've had experience. I'm a local farmer rancher. I've had construction experience. We have products on the market. You know, I've dealt with beef, processed beef, finished beef, wholesale, retail, real estate, broker, former detective. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, jack of all trades. What part of the county do you live in?
North Archer,
North Archer.
the unincorporated village.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
Look forward to your participation.
Thank you.
Okay, Ken.
And another new member, Jenny Ford, is not here currently. She was appointed to the member chosen at large. We have, as you said, we had a resignation from Mr. Loftus that was in the position residing in the unincorporated area outside the urban cluster. So he turned his resignation in a couple of weeks ago. So there's that vacant position currently. So we have 10 regular positions filled now, 1 vacancy. So with that, the election of officers annually, committee elects a chair and a vice chair. That's per the bylaws, and those terms of those officers run through the fiscal year until this time next year, until the end of September next year, or until the elections probably in October of next year. So, if there's any questions about that, otherwise, typically we take nominations from the committee for, start with the president position. If anybody has any questions about the duties, essentially it's to preside over the meetings. There's some other calling special meetings and things like that, but normally it's presiding over the meeting, setting the agenda, and the vice chair fills in the absence of the chair. So, yeah.
I nominate Dr. Clauser to be the chair.
Okay. Nomination for Dr. Clauser.
Okay. So we have a nomination, other nominations? Larry, you have anybody you want to nominate?
No, I'll second the nomination as you for chairman.
Any other nominations? If not, is there a move that the nominations be closed?
I move that we close nominations for the chair position.
Okay, so it's been moved, seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of Rod Clauser for being chair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passed. You should have asked Ken if he wants to, and Regina if they want to deal with me.
Absolutely.
So- Okay, we'll open the nominations for vice chair.
Nominate Mr. Hall for vice chair.
Okay, Larry Hall's been nominated for vice chair. Other nominations? Not hearing any. One thing I should do, Larry, are you willing to continue if elected as vice chair?
I will, and thank you for the nomination.
Okay, if there's no other nominations, all those in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? That passes unanimously. All those in favor of Larry Hall serving as vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. So we got that out of the way quickly. So we'll do everything possible to keep things moving along. I've been frankly very pleased with the attendance. I mean, this is sort of unusual. We've always pretty much had 9 people at least in attendance. And especially when we've had it out the Alachua County office, we've been having 2 or 3 people from the public as well. So anyway, that's been working good. And so I appreciate that. And sorry to hear that Mr. Loftus had to resign because of a change in jobs or job responsibilities. But I'm sure we'll be hearing more from the staff about when that process will become open for searching for that position. So that would be my only comments as the chair, other than that I firmly believe that we should try to get as much, if not all our business accomplished as in about 90 minutes as possible. So if you agree with that, then we'll need to move along. So if there's not any other discussion, we're going to move right into the discussion on the pavement management system in Alachua County. And Ramon is with us, and he's been with us before. And he's director and responsible and in charge for public works here in Alachua County. And early in the year before she resigned from the commission, Commissioner Alford had visited with us about the change in the distribution formula for money for the road system. And we needed some follow up on that because she didn't have all the details on that. So we've asked Ramon to come and visit with us about that. So Ramon, thank you for being with us once again, and we'll turn the meeting over to you.
You need to let me actually share my screen.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And can we do work on the volume on that?
Yes, we are. We're trying to see if we can't improve. Okay, Ramon.
Tell me what you all are seeing, please. Are you seeing the one that has only one slide, or are you seeing?
We see the one slide.
All right, good, good. Well, I apologize for not being there. All my intentions were to be there present, but I had to come back to Public Works to deal with an issue, and then I just didn't have time to drive back downtown. So I'm going to be presenting you all a presentation that has a lot of the slides that were presented to the Board of County Commissioners basically a year ago, September 14th of 2021 was when I presented for the first time to the board this presentation. Some of the numbers have been updated because obviously we have had something called inflation since September of 2021. So the project, the costs actually, unfortunately, have come up. Oh. Okay, so now that my screens are awake, the first thing is what is payment management, and I'm not gonna read the slides. You all can actually read slides, I'm sure, but I equate payment management to the maintenance of your roof. If you have a shingle roof in your home, and when you first come in, that shingle roof is beautiful. It's the shingles are brand new. The water just goes off. You never have any leaks in your roof. It's beautiful. As the years go by, especially if you have trees and other things like that overhang over your roof gets older, and you start getting some deterioration on the shingles. Once in a while, you have a shingle that might be lifted by a strong wind, for example, or maybe but through the expansion and contractions of the shingles, you start having little leaks. A lot of times, homeowners, we have leaks in our shingles roof, and we don't really know it until it's too late. Because what happens is the shingles can start leaking a little bit first, then it gets into that paper that they put between that plywood and the shingles. And then once that paper is soaked or possibly completely compromised or oxidized, then it starts getting into the plywood. Once it gets into the plywood and your plywood gets rotten out, that's when you have the major problem. So eventually, if you actually go and do a roof replacement, most roofers are going to give you a price to replace the shingles and the paper. And they're going to say anything below that, it'll be extra. So then you start paying for plywood replacements and sometimes even worse. Well, that's the same thing with payment management. If you don't manage your payment, you end up having a roof that is no longer good. And so payment management is what we use to manage and maintain a roadway system. And quite frankly, the roadway system is one of the biggest assets any government has in their possession, especially local governments. So again, you can actually read, but the bottom line is that a good payment management system today, actually, let me scratch that. If we would have done good payment management 30, 40 years ago, today we would not be having the problems that we have in our current roadway system. What we're trying to do is start doing payment management today, although it's going to be very painful when it comes to the costs, so that eventually we'll have a better roadway system in the county. So these are some pictures that what we call some maintenance treatment examples. Crack sealing, I think, is very obvious what it is. You have little cracks that come up in your asphalt. If you go there early and you crack seal them and you seal those cracks, the water will not go into your base. We do a lot of cut and mill and patch. We do a lot of pothole patching, obviously. The lower left corner, that's very poor practice, and we do not want to do that. Then you start getting into other treatments like chip seals. In this county, in Alachua County, we mostly do chip seals to basically cover lime rock roads with an asphaltic surface called chip seals. But overall, around the country in the world, chip seals are actually used on asphalt. It's another surface layer that is less expensive than a complete resurfacing, but it still does the job. It's a little bit rough to ride on. And then you have the others like rejuvenation, scrub seals, or microservices, different examples of what you can do. The costs are different. If you have a road, for example, like 43rd that we did, 2 years ago, or County Road 337, I believe in High Springs, that we did back in 16, 17. Those roads are prime candidates right now for what's called a rejuvenation coat. That adds any of these treatment is going to add life to your asphalt. Anywhere between 5 to 8 years, possibly even 10 years more on your asphalt. And it'll be still an acceptable riding surface. Unfortunately, because of the conditions of most of our roadways in this county, this is basically what we end up having to do nowadays. We actually go there and remove some of the asphalt. Most of the time we remove anywhere between 1.5 to 3 inches. And then we put back equal amount of asphalt back in. If the cracks on your asphalt are to the point that the base is deteriorated, then you get into these other treatments like full depth reclamation or full reconstruction. Those are very expensive. And yes, we do have a lot of roadways in our system that basically, unfortunately, that's what we're going to end up having to do on them. So this graphic is very important. And this cross section is just conditions of asphalt. When you first overlay a roadway or when you do a roadway, your asphalt is beautiful, it's black. You go drive it, you don't have bumps, or Lord willing, you don't have bumps if it's a brand new roadway. So your pavement condition index, us engineers love to use acronyms and stuff like that, but I'm going to call them your conditioning index. Your grade is excellent, it's 100%. As the years go by and the weather starts getting into it, the sun and other elements, the traffic, you start getting some cracks. If you're going to do crack sealing, you want to do crack sealing in this area right here between Fair and Good. Right in this area is what you want to do the crack sealing. If you wait too long, then the water start going down into your sub base and your base, and then eventually you get into the poor and very poor conditions. Unfortunately, in Alachua County, only 22% of our roadways are in the good condition section. By the way, Alachua County maintains approximately 700 lane miles or center line miles of roadways. So only 22% of those 700 miles are in good conditions. 44% of our roadways, almost half of them, are in this last quarter, in the last section of the spectrum, poor or very poor. Again, if your roadways are anywhere between good and fair, you can do what's called pavement preservation techniques. Once you start getting into the poor and very poor, you're looking at very expensive treatments like full depth reclamation or complete reconstructs. And you see the costs on the right-hand side. These costs have been adjusted to $2022. We basically have seen a 21% jump in prices from last year to this year at the same time.
So Ramon, hold that slide for a second. Can we move that
I think
view pane up to the top so we can see the cost?
Oh,
you can
sure.
just collapse.
I think you can collapse it all the way down too. The minus sign on the left.
Okay, we were unable to see the costs. Now we can see them.
I wonder, but you're looking the whole slide, right? Are you seeing my mouse move?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, the problem was we had the view pane on, it was covering up your last column.
Oh,
We
I apologize for that.
collapsed.
So yeah, so you see the unit cost, you see the difference, crack sealing, rejuvenation, preservation, those are very reasonable costs per square yard. And then you start getting into the more expensive treatments. You start getting into minors and you see the depths of area here. And then you get into full reclamation or full reconstructions. That's $190 a square yard. Just to give you numbers, right now, a mile of road resurfacing is going to cost us anywhere between $1.3 and $1.5 million for a 2-lane roadway. Just 1 mile. So keeping in track with that, with those numbers in mind, I said earlier in my presentation, the road resurface, the road network is probably the most expensive asset county government will have. This is the current, the value of our roadway system is, if it was perfect, would be about $1.9 billion. That's the value of a roadway system. Unfortunately, because of the conditions of our roadways are in today, we have lost about $800 million worth of value. That actually translates into your backlog. Yes, your backlog right now is about, here it says per mile, $682 or, but basically we have lost $800,000 worth of value in our system because we have not maintained our roadways the way we should have for the past 30 or 40 years. Commissioner Alford, when she was commissioner, said it perfectly. We're now going to have to pay for 30 or 40 years of deferred maintenance. So what the graphs at the bottom says is also, I'm going to go treatment by cost, for example. $239 billion. I believe this is billion. That will be, no, yeah, $239 million. This area is the most expensive, and that's only 40% of our roadway system, roadway network. So for 40% of our roadway network, we end up paying almost $239 million if we want to go fix it right now. Again, 44% of our roadways are already in the poor or bad condition. So the next few slides are just some pictures that represent some of our conditions. This road, which is Northwest 69th Street, the pavement condition index of this is actually a 9. If you go to college, 9 is not a passing grade. By the way, for engineers, if we get below a 75, that's not a passing grade for engineers. So you have a PCI, a pavement condition of 9. This road would cost us today $1 million to go and fix, and it's only half a mile. The only reason this road is still together and not falling completely apart is because it is contained because of the curb and gutter system. So we haven't had the sliding of these little squares that you see everywhere off into the Neverland, and then you have bigger and bigger potholes. I think a lot of us might have driven on this road. This is Northwest 98th Street, right there in front of basically either Ellis Park or Hills of Santa Fe area. This pavement condition index, by the way, this evaluation was done in 2020. So 2 years later, I'm sure the pavement condition index today is probably closer to 36, most likely. And to go do this roadway project, which is only 2 miles, you see the cost, about $2.7 million, but we would need to just go there and mill and resurface this project, this roadway. Pavement condition of 64. That's a very minor road. Again, you have some cracking, and so we might be able to do a combination of treatments on this, of crack sealing and maybe another type of seal, maybe a slurry seal or a cave seal on this road. So this is a perfect road according to our standards right now. This is a pavement condition of 83. And on this one, all we would do is would be a very minor pavement preservation layer. And it could be just like a maybe not a rejuvenation coat, but some kind of slurry seal or something, just to fill in the voids that might be already creating on that road. And that would basically add an additional 5 to 10 years of life to this roadway. I'm not going to bore you too much with this, but the bottom line is this. To be able to improve our payment condition today to a 70, we will need approximately $42 million a year to be able to improve our roadways conditions to a 70. If we just want to maintain our current conditions, which by the way, they're not great, we need $32 million a year. Our current practice before the board approves the CIP or before maybe the infrastructure surtax, Our current practice, we're getting anywhere around $4 million a year. The board did make a conscious decision during the approval of the budget for this current fiscal year, which we're already calling fiscal year 2023, because it ends September 30th of 2023. The board did double that number at least. So for 23, I'm going to have actually 8 million a year, which is a huge improvement over 4 million. But unfortunately, it's still not $31 million. So keep that in mind. We are right now in flux. We're waiting to see what happens with the infrastructure surtax or not. A few weeks ago, I believe was the Tuesday of Hurricane Ian that was supposed to come to us. Thank God it did not come to us. But that Tuesday, I believe it was the 27th of November, the Board of County Commissioners did vote to actually allocate 70% of the second half of the infrastructure surtax, if it passes, towards roadways. That would provide in 2023 approximately about $9.8 million to add to this $8 million that we would be getting already. So a few graphs of interest. The orangey line, I don't know what color comes through in your projector. Sometimes projectors change the colors of our lines. But the bottom line that I'm moving the mouse to, that's basically with our current funding. What this is saying is that with our current funding of $4 million a year, in 18 years, our payment condition average would be closer to a 30. Today is closer to a 60. So we definitely need to pump more money into the payment maintenance, payment management system, because this is our future if we do not do that. I already said that today, only about 22% of our roadways are in good condition. Once it gets to that point, the deterioration rate increases exponentially. So in 18 years, only 3% of our roadway system will be in good condition if we continue to only fund like $4 million a year. So anywhere more than $4 million, this would increase the number of good roads. However, unfortunately, just to maintain the current payment condition of 60, we need a $31.5 million a year investment, and we're not going to get that funding anytime soon. So this is just more graphs that basically say the same things. The board, like I said, the board already opted to go ahead and bump from 4 to 8 million starting next year. If the infrastructure surtax passes, that will be an additional 9.8 million. And then these lines would definitely change. So they'll be anywhere between, if it's only $8 million, it will be slightly below this magenta or cyan line. If it's closer to 17 or 18 million, it'll be slightly higher than this little brownish line. So I rather just open it now for questions, and I'll try to have the answers for you all if you have any questions and answers. So I'm going to pass the baton to you all.
Okay, so we'll open up the floor to questions. Anybody on the committee have a question? James?
Thanks so much for the presentation. I really understand a lot more about roads now. Are your projections accounting for population increases and potential like harder wear on the roads or increased road mileage?
The program that uses a lot of variables. So the short answer is yes. Okay. It does have a growth factor, but the bottom line is that our payment conditions really deteriorate exponentially once it gets to the condition of where our roadways currently are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, growth is going to have a huge impact on the roadway system, obviously, but we've been growing traffic numbers excluding the COVID years, 20 and 21 are not good years to compare traffic. But on the average, it's anywhere between 2 to 3% per year. That is manageable growth on a roadway system. Now you have localized impacts. If all of a sudden you have a distribution center that comes in and all of a sudden you have these 18-wheelers, doubling the traffic on certain roads, that road is going to have problems. And that the program cannot take care of, because that really depends on location of that development that might come in or not. Now, and let me continue that. We actually did counts, and so there is traffic volumes into the program. So when we decide, and we do counts every year on a roadway system. So that's how the program then would actually take into account the growth, even if it's a localized growth due to a development. When we go do that count, let's say County Road 235, a new distribution center opens up. Between now and the next few years, as that distribution center gears up and more trucks are on the road, that traffic number goes into the program. And then it takes that into the account, into the deterioration curve. And then you'll probably push that roadway to be, for us to have to do a project sooner and not later.
How many miles of roads are private versus county maintained in the county? And have there been any efforts, I guess, for those type of, I know that we kind of discussed this at some point last week, but for developments or or commercial uses for the roads to be offsetting the costs for their use of the road?
All right. I already said earlier that we have 700 centerline miles that we maintain. Paved
Right.
roads. Those are paved roads. Those are not line roads is another 200 miles.
Okay,
Um,
how many miles are private?
I really cannot tell you how many roads of privately maintained roadways are.
Okay,
People have different definitions of private roads. Sometimes they're little paths, sometimes they're roadways. But I can tell you that there's probably another equal amount out there. Now, the Board of County Commissioners is going to be, it has a public hearing coming up on October 25th. So next week, a week from today, where they're going to be amending the Uniform Land Development Code, ULDC, that we have in this county, requiring any new subdivisions to establish what's called an improvement district or a special assessment district over that new subdivision, where the property owners then will be assessed an annual amount with their property taxes, non-ad valorem assessment. And that money will go to an account specifically for that development, for the future, for the maintenance and future capital improvement of those roadways. So that's for future development. So the board is doing that for future development, because the truth is we cannot keep accepting roadways for maintenance when we cannot actually maintain what we already have.
So can I just jump in there for a second, Ramon?
Yes, sir.
So the special district or whatever, it's a less formal mechanism than the community development district, where they the homeowners association actually is responsible for the road repair. So the county will be collecting the money and then applying it to road repair in those neighborhoods in the future.
That's correct. Now, if there is a development where there's going to be an HOA, for example, and the HOA covenants say that they will collect the money and they will be responsible to maintain the roadways or sidewalks or something, that development would not be assessed for that.
Right. So I guess one question that's always come up in my mind, I don't know if you remember, I do a lot with the Association of Counties, and that's where I first met you when you came up here to Alachua County. But
that's where I'd seen you. I was wondering where I had seen you before.
the thing I'm wondering is, why wouldn't the county make more of an effort to say to developers when they come in and we're doing a new development with the homeowners association, that it need to be a community development district, where it left it up to them, rather than the county. That's still an alternative, correct?
Well, Ronnie, let me expand on that. One thing is, what you're talking is a CDD or CDD. Those are like Celebration Point has a CDD.
Right.
And
Oh,
those are basically quasi-governmental entities, actually. A special improvement district or special assessment district is a formalized process. It's a public meeting, the board, and then it goes into your tax bill. And the only difference between an SID or SAD and a CDD is that the county will manage the SID or SAD, whereas a different board will be managing the CDD. At the end of the day, the Board of County Commissioners is still the overseer of a CDD.
Right.
Now, if it's an HOA, and I personally have an issue with saying that if there's an HOA and the covenant says that the HOA is going to be charging and the people assessing the people to their HOA fees for the future maintenance of the roadway system, that is great when there's still an HOA. The problem is that HOAs can be dissolved very easily. And a lot of HOAs do not stay official HOAs forever. So that's another reason why the board is going to adopt already an ordinance for every new development for a special improvement district. So that even if the HOA goes away one day, the board already has the mechanism to establish a non-avalorem assessment for all those properties to be able to do repairs on the roadways.
Right. So the other question I had, because maybe I misunderstood when Commissioner Alford first talked to us about it, but I thought she was giving some indication to us that the road repairs would be based on a broader concept than the number of trips that were generated on the road. It would be a combination of trips, but there was a mileage factor being added in as well. Is that true or false?
There is many factors in this payment management system. It's not just number of road trips. It's not just traffic volumes. It's not just payment conditionings. One of the items that eventually is going to be added to this payment management system is equity into it. The city of Dallas uses the same system that we are using now, and they were the first city in the entire country that actually added the equity component into a payment management system. Unfortunately, in Alachua County, we are just now in the process of collecting and setting up the data to be able to put those variables into this program. Dr. Deidre Hutchins is going to actually review our projects for equity, make sure that we're not concentrating all the projects in one area of the county. We want to spread the projects around the county. So it's more than just traffic volumes. Please don't get me wrong. It's more than just traffic volumes. There's many components that go into a system like this. Now, the main ones are payment condition indexes, and traffic volumes are very important, obviously, because theoretically, the more traffic volume you have on a road, if you don't maintain that road, it's going to deteriorate a lot faster than a road that is used a little less. So those two are still very important components of any payment management system.
So my question to follow up was going to be, I guess most people in the state, as well as the individual counties, don't realize that the majority of the road maintenance and who's responsible for the roads is overwhelming to the counties and the cities, and the state and federal government is relatively minor. But then we've got an area where we have a large unincorporated area in Alachua County, and it's rural in nature. And so they're not great roads to start with, and then they get increased travel or you get a big rain and it starts washing stuff out and stuff like that. Culverts get clogged, whatever the case might be, it causes the deterioration. But do you see any difference going forward? Assuming that the surtax passes, they up that, the board's allocation to you by $4 million, then you get the surtax, which is gonna be about 9 million. How will you start allocating it? Is it gonna be a first come or worse first type basis?
No, that's one thing that we are changing. We're not gonna continue to do worse first. Unfortunately, if you actually continue with just doing worse first, you're not increasing the life of those roadways before they get to the point that you have to do them as worse first. You know, I mean, they keep deteriorating. So you need to do a system, a pavement management system that you have to do the bad roads, but you also have to do some kind of treatments in the other roads to be able to maintain that surface at a more acceptable level for the traveling public. By the way, in Alachua County, I mean, I've been in this county now for 6 years. Prior to me getting here, this county did not do that much road work at all, I'll be honest with you. But 330, we did the road, I think it's 336 right there in High Springs, you know, going from 441 to 75. We did 219A. Yes, we've done 43rd, we did Tower Road, but we have done projects that are not just in the urbanized areas.
And I think the interest of would be even more. So, you know, I realize, for example, the Tower Road is not in the urbanized area. Most people would say that the Tower Road area is Gainesville. It's not within the city limits, but they say it's Gainesville. But what about for the smaller communities further out and the individuals that live on even in the more rural areas? Do you see some, because you're getting away from the worst first, and there's a lot of ifs still left on this, but is it going to shift some of the funds to the more rural areas?
I believe that once we go to the board, by the way, that's going to be in January. Once we go to the board with our proposed pavement management system, you're going to see projects all over the county. Now, I will be lying to you if I don't expect to see a lot of projects in the urbanized area, but I think you're going to see a lot of projects in the rural area also. Because again, we're not just doing worse first anymore. You're also going to do a lot of different type of projects. It's not just going to be your standard mill and resurface. So I think you will be seeing a lot of projects around the county, not just in the urbanized areas.
Okay, appreciate that. Jordan, you have a question.
As a follow-up to that, is the January submittal or the January proposal, will that be a public list of order of go on street?
My understanding is that when we go to the board with the capital improvement program in January, yes, at that time, the board then would either accept the recommendation from staff or modify it, because they can do that, obviously, as the board. But once that board meeting is done, we will have a prioritized an official list, and we'll move forward to delivering projects.
So to follow up to Jordan's question, so when you come with that official list, is those projects will be completed in 12 months, 2 years, 3 months? I mean, how long does that spread out? Or are you just going fiscal year by fiscal year?
Well, our capital program is actually 5 years, but it is a dynamic document, our capital improvement CIP, in short, capital improvement program. So it's more than just 12 months. It's actually a 5-year plan. And in those 5 years, there'll be numerous projects to be done. We are going to try to deliver a lot of projects in 23, with the understanding that, you know, we're going to have a very short year in 23. If the capital program is not approved until, let's say, mid-January, we already into 23 at that time. So I expect that, yes, there's gonna be a few projects delivered in 23. Most of them probably construction might start later in 23, but then in 24, you're gonna see a lot of projects on the street.
Okay, Larry Hall, I want to give you a chance online to ask a question. Do you have any question?
Thank you, Dr. Clauser. Ramon, thank you. That was very informative. I also reviewed the Kirshner Group submission, which has a lot of data, and also the Alachua County pavement management overview. What I'm seeing and what I see from what you've presented, it has been a number of years that the county commission has not assigned a priority to maintaining the largest asset the county has, which, as you said, is our road system. While I'm seeing a significant increase in the funding, it is way short of what is needed. And just as a personal comment, when I see other things the county's spending money on, some of us in the rural areas are not real pleased with that. For example, and this is not a lot of money, but today, and maybe this is not true, but it was on the local news at noon, the county paid $850,000 for the corner lot in Micanopy to keep from having a dollar store built there. That to me is interfering in private business and taking money that could be used for better resources. I support a tax increase if it's used properly, but I think there's a lot of distrust with the citizens that they have had a bait and switch in the past where funds that were supposedly going to go to roads have been spent for other areas that are not as critical as our roadway. Those are just my personal remarks.
Other questions, Jordan?
Quick follow-up on the pavement management system. Does that also include, you talked about 2 to 3% growth and that it accounts for that. Does it also include for road expansion, extension, or new builds?
You said new builds?
New builds, new roads.
New builds. Again, there is a growth factor that is actually inherent into the program. And that growth factor takes into account new development. And the projections are trued up every time we do count. So every year, those count values are going to be put into the system. And that's how you basically stay up with the development. And when you project, by the way, I got a list right now that I got from a computer run, but that's all it is right now, a computer run, and it's not an official list. I got projects all the way to 2045 right now. Because the program does have the ability of growing the traffic and unfortunately, either upgrading the payment condition index or downgrading the payment condition index, depending on what we do. So the program actually has the ability to project in the future based on the growth of the past. So every year when we input the new counts, that growth factor is corrected.
So does it account for, say, adding another lane? Say in 5 years, when the growth hits a certain number, does it account for adding another lane? And therefore the associated costs with another lane? Like, will it account for an expansion of a road or even an extension to new areas? If it's, say, a 2-lane now, but over time it would need to be 4 lanes to that
The
area.
answer to your question is yes, depending on how there's a lot of constraints that you build into the program, and there's a table where you can go there starting in this year. This road is going to be a 4-lane roadway. Now, have we done that right now? The answer is no, because quite frankly, my primary goal right now is to maintain what we have.
Yeah, no, I'm following. I'm just wondering if it accounted for any kind of, like, not only maintaining a new 4-lane road, but building the new 4-lane road.
Now, I can tell you, and I think there was a question earlier about development pain or whatever. you know, the new development pays what's called the multimodal traffic maintenance fees, the MMTMs, multimodal. In the past, that used to be called impact fees. Unfortunately, those two things can only be used for capacity. So if I'm going to go add the lane, that's the funding I can use. I can use some of the gas tax for that. But because of the conditions of a roadway system in Alachua County, I'm having to use gas tax just to maintain what we have. So new capacity is going to have to be paid through the MMTM fees or impact fees or grants that we might be able to get through the state of Florida or the federal government.
And that leads to my final thing. I know there was a big infrastructure bill that had federal money for road conditions and upgrades and bridges and that kind of thing. I don't know, however, if any of that is applicable to the county level maintenance programs.
All right. I'm actually very active both at the state level and national level. I'm actually a past president of the National Association of County Engineers. I'm still very active in a National Transportation Steering Committee. So I can tell you that I meet regularly with, I'm sorry to say it this way, with bureaucrats, both at a state level and national level. I worked hard in that transportation bill that passed at a national level. The counties did get a lot in that bill. Don't get me wrong, we got a lot in that bill. Are we gonna see a lot of the money coming to Alachua County the first few years? Probably not. Are we gonna see money coming from the federal government eventually from this transportation bill? The answer is yes. But it's not gonna be in the first couple of years because unfortunately there are some things, prerequisites that we need to meet to be able to get our hands into that funding that is coming straight from the federal government to the counties. And that money won't even go through the state DOTs. There is money for bridge maintenance or bridge replacements that can come directly to the counties without having to go through DOT in this new bill. There is money to do payment projects directly to the county in this new bill. Alachua County, we did apply for some grants. Unfortunately, a lot of the grants right now is to be able to do what the federal government wants to be as a prerequisite, like a plan. This will actually help us to get funding come next year when we apply again. So are we gonna see more federal money in Alachua County in the next couple of years? I would probably say no, but eventually we will see more money coming directly to the county through the federal government.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Other questions for Ramon?
I have another question. In looking at the needs analysis comparison that you presented, and I'm looking at a copy of it here that I have, to maintain the current condition, you're projecting on today's dollars, $31.5 million. The county commission apparently has no intention or maybe no ability to reach that. So it appears to me, and maybe you have a different idea, that we're going to continue to see a decline in our road system in this county because I don't see any way that's going to be funded to turn that line upwards instead of down.
That's a loaded question. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not gonna say I disagree with you. Yes, I need $32 million a year in today's dollars to be able to maintain the current condition. But this is what I would tell you. If I go take care of a long roadway, let's say 235 or 1469 today, yes, that road, which is used by a lot of people, both in the urban and rural area, those roadways are gonna be better whether we allocate, if we can actually pass the infrastructure surtax, and let's say I get around 17 to 18 million a year between the 8 million plus the 9, plus or minus, you will see an improvement on the roadway system. And it'll be a few years before you actually start creeping up that number. Now, is it going to go to 70 with only 18, 20 million a year? The answer is no. But at least we're not going downward and downward and downward continuously to be only at 3% of our roadways to be in good condition in 18 years. So yes, I would love to get, let's say 40 million a year if possible, to be able to do what we need to do. But quite frankly, I don't think that's going to happen. The other problem, the other challenge that we're going to have is, are there enough contractors that work in this area to be able to meet the demand of, let's say, 20, 30, $40 million worth of road work out there? I think we're going to find that out sooner or later.
One additional comment, and I don't know there's anything can be done about it, but part of the problem that I see in some of the rural roads is we have a lot of trucks that are coming hauling materials out of this county that are based in other counties. Now, I know the state sales gas tax gives you some money, but proportionate to the damage they're doing to the roadway, that I'm sure it is not compensating for the damage to those roads. And I don't know that anything could be done to impose an additional cost or fee to recoup some money from those companies that utilize our county, but reside in other counties and are not doing anything but bringing trucks in and damaging our roads.
Well, let me correct you a little bit in what you just said about paying taxes. Unfortunately, local taxes, we get up to 12 cents per gallon on local taxes for a roadway. That is distributed among the cities in the county, 12 cents per gallon. So the more gallons that are sold in the county, the more money we get. Unfortunately, as the vehicles get more fuel efficient or people travel less miles, our gas tax revenue has been trending down instead of up. So just because you have a truck that comes from another county and travels the roadways, unless that truck driver buys fuel in our county, we're not getting any money from that truck. The state of Florida is, but the state of Florida doesn't share their revenue with us. We only get the local tax, which is 12 cents a gallon. The other thing the state of Florida did a few years ago, back in the 90s, is that they actually index their tax. So when the fuel per gallon, when the gallon of fuel is as high as it is right now, the state of Florida is still not losing money because their tax is basically a percentage of the sale. So they're still making money. As a matter of fact, I would say they actually make more money when the gallons are more expensive. We, on the other hand, the local governments, we actually lose money when fuel is expensive because people buy less fuel. Now, if the infrastructure surtax passes, all those people that live outside Alachua County and come to the county to work or to visit students in UF or for recreational purposes, and they buy anything in this county, then they're going to be paying a tax that will be used then for road work. The Board of County Commission, like I said, just back in September 27th, did vote officially to say 70% of the second half of the penny is going to go towards roads. So unfortunately, not every car that travels our roadway system is actually buying anything, buying fuel in Alachua County.
Other questions for Ramon? So not seeing it, Ramon, will you make sure that Ken has a copy of your presentation today so we can include it in our minutes on that? And we thank you for your time again. You're always helpful and candid on answering questions we have for you. And we appreciate that.
No problem. Anytime you need me, and if you have any of your members have any questions, they can always call me or email me. I'll be more than happy to sit down or talk to them or email them. And I will be emailing. I think I already did send this to Ken, but I'll send it again. And then again, anytime, just give me a call or email me.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
So hopefully that was helpful. We got some answers. I guess it's a little different than what I thought I heard from Commissioner Alford early on when they were really significantly looking at maybe changing the distribution formula. It also shows you the big hole that we're in. And county governments in Florida are huge, have huge responsibilities in maintaining roads, way more than the state and federal highway system does.
What is the history of like political nature? Like, is the Association of Counties, have they been asking for help from the state?
They have,
Okay,
you know, the bottom line, and I think Larry's line of questioning was very interesting. But, and it's not just the number, but I think to move the needle a little bit, it's not only who's elected, but what they're hearing from the public and different things like that. So obviously, if people in rural areas of the county probably aren't really getting in local commissioners' ears a lot, you know, the needle's going to move even slower on allocating some of those funds. So
I feel like the commissioners hear about roads pretty frequently in Alachua County, but.
yeah, but I noticed, and it'll be interesting to see if it works. Several of those pictures where he showed the roads were poor, they were obviously in subdivision.
Mhm.
So those were subdivisions that were probably started, and they had to meet the road conditions required by the county. The error was that if they did that, then the roads became
County
responsibility.
roads, yeah.
And that's why the specialized taxing.
I don't know, I just didn't see I live in a dirt road, so I heard him mention it once. Oh, yeah, Lambert Road, I had 200 miles. It's like all the roads that you show up there, way better than the road I use every day.
Right.
And I get what a dump truck and a grader every 3 months passes through the road, and that's it. So
That's great.
if you think about rural, that's what I think. That's where I
Right.
think most of the time.
So I think the rural population will need to keep addressing
Yeah,
that issue with the commission.
and I guess, cause that is like a significant 2 out of, I mean, 2 out of 9 is pretty significant. And I wonder if they're like, that would have been a good question to ask, is like, what are they trying to do? Are they just gonna maintain those limestone roads? Cause I've also lived on a limestone road for many years, and it's like, goodness gracious, the little CRV can't handle it, you know, let alone something smaller. But yeah, are they gonna try and pave those roads? Or are they gonna just keep maintaining them?
Well, and it'll be interesting because the key is in January, you know, it sounds like it'll be ranked from 1 to N.
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it. We'll have to see if it turns out like that. But it may be an issue that we want to keep our eye on.
I think Mr. Hall's got his hand.
Larry?
Just to, and I don't know that we could put this together here. When I was in Southwest Florida in banking there for 10 or 12 years, there was really big transportation needs as that Naples, Fort Myers, Southwest Florida area grew. There was a organization put together, Southwest Florida Transportation Initiative, which had developers, which had local citizens. And in Hendry County, where I was running a bank, we put together a one called Citizens Highway Initiative, CHIP. We were able to, we couldn't call ourselves lobbyists under the IRS formation, but we could go in and do a lot of challenging for money for getting the gas tax increased by the county. And I think here they're maxed out already. But that two organizations was very instrumental in focusing on the needs in that area for roads, and got a lot of more money than would normally have been accumulated by the local elected officials, I believe. So whether or not something like that could be put together here would take a lot of effort and a lot of people involved, but maybe that's something that folks in the rural areas may want to take a look at sometime.
Any other thoughts on the road situation and things like that in Alachua County? Okay, if not, let's move on. Well, before we do that, first of all, Jeannie has joined us, and so welcome to the group. Would you like to introduce yourself and say a little bit?
Hi, I'm Jenny Ford. This is my first board membership. It's very exciting. Sorry it's late. I couldn't get away from work.
Where do
Very
you
sick.
live here at in the county?
I live in Newberry,
Newberry.
so not super rural, but kind of. And I've lived in Alachua County now for 10 years. Nice to meet you all.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're gonna go back to old business. And we had some discussion at the end of the last meeting is the on the farm stay that will be going to the commissioners for a public hearing. We had the folks come out and give us a preview of that early. You put in some suggested changes. They came back and showed us the alterations they had made. They and showed us to us in the form they're going for the public hearing. And I was telling Ken before and Ben and Regina before the meeting is that it seemed clear from some of the things they had done that they had listened to at least what some of our concerns were. Towards the end of the last meeting, conversation has sort of shifted. Did we want to send something formal from this committee to the county commission that maybe would be generic, that we've had the chance to review it, we've had the chance to provide input, we've got feedback on revised draft for the public hearing, and in general, we are aware, we are supportive of the concept, or do we just want to drop it and say, we've talked about it two or three times at committee meetings and that. So I need the input from the members.
And this is for form stay,
It's for farm stay, yes.
so we left from new business to old business.
New business, we basically have had the nominations and elected, and we've had the paper management. So we're on old business.
Okay, so y'all did the nominations already? Who was elected?
Same as this year, myself and Larry Hall.
Okay, and y'all amended the agenda?
Now, the only thing we did is so that Ramon could do it, is we moved under new business B to A and then A to B,
Under new business?
under new business.
Oh, okay.
Didn't amend anything else.
And what was the vote for the nomination?
It was unanimous for vote.
And your term is up in this year, right?
No, I was reappointed.
Oh, okay. I was just looking at it. Okay.
And Larry, do you know when your term's up? Can somebody
2023.
2023? So Larry's on board for the next 4 year.
When is the meeting for the final approval of this text amendment?
So it's next week, October 25th is the second public hearing.
Okay,
So this has went to the first public hearing. And in September, they saw the draft that the committee saw,
mhm.
and no changes were made to it. They authorized the second public hearing on October 25th. So it's the same draft that the committee looked at before. It hasn't changed any for the second public hearing.
Right.
Is there opportunity to change it at the second public hearing?
Yeah.
And from my perspective, and I was telling the county staff this before we started. It seems like a lot of times we'll get an issue like this. We spent a fair amount of time on it at a couple of meetings. We made quite a few suggestions and we've had a robust discussion. But if we say nothing, that's fine. But how will they know we've even reviewed it or made input?
And they were informed in the first public hearing that this committee had reviewed it and made a motion of general support, made suggestions. So they got that information.
Okay.
And they even got the list of suggestions that came out of this committee as part of their backup. So there has been some, documentation that went to them.
Okay,
This committee looked at it.
and so it's whatever the committee wants to do.
Yeah, I guess I feel like if they got that draft that we edited, then there's not really anything more that we could say to the commission, but I don't know.
It was just a question that was raised at the very end of the meeting. At the last meeting.
Yeah, I think that by and large, we should write a few more letters. If they're not receiving material that we've mulled over, then we should probably write them to let them know in some way or another.
Okay, anybody else have any thoughts on that? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on and we'll drop that subject. Next thing on the agenda was Cindy Sanders was gonna try to give us a update on a local broadband. She was unable to be here and I don't see her online. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so we are not gonna be able to get the latest update on that, and remember, we had a couple of members of the public at the last meeting, that was a big issue with them as well, and we had the one lady online who always, she joined us several times, but she really has poor broadband. We end up losing connections and contact with her. So that's the two items of old business we had to follow up on. So we're down to committee member comments. Are there comments from committee members, including in your comments, if you have any suggestions on items that you'd like to see the committee address in the next meeting or upcoming meetings, to let us know about those.
I have a comment.
Okay,
My comment is that I think the last meeting, you was very rude when you hung up. I'm not sure if we follow the Robert Rules of Order. The chair cannot make a motion. So you made a motion to end the meeting and you ended the meeting. So I don't know what rules are we following.
so do you want to, it's not Robert's rules, do you remember what the county
It's
rules
the
are?
Sturgis rules of parliamentary procedure.
So it's Sturgis not the same as Robert Rules?
No, it's not exactly the same, but if I remember, I believe that at that point, there was no quorum in the room, so there was no motion or vote on anything.
No, I know someone was on the line talking. It wasn't me, but you hung up on them while they was talking. Yeah.
I think it may have been the woman who had poor broadband.
We
freaking out.
couldn't hear her, she wasn't showing up.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Were
that,
you able to hear her, Mr. Bay?
yeah, I was able to.
Okay, because we weren't getting a connection. Is that what everybody remembers out the extension office?
Yeah, you really couldn't hear her.
It sounded like a robot and you were getting about the first
Yeah.
part of every second or third word.
That was
That was
my
Stewart.
experience.
And so you have a copy of the stewards rules. Say what rules?
I don't have it right now, but
Okay,
you can get that.
yeah, but I was just trying to figure out what kind of order we, well, I know that Robert rules, you kind of make motion and things of that nature.
And I looked at those at one point in time because that question has come up before and they're slightly revised generically. They're sort of very similar,
That's what I was thinking.
but
It was-
they're slightly revised. So, but can we get that information, Mr. Bain, so we can pursue it?
Yeah.
I would also like that information to just make sure. I feel like I speak out of turn all the time. For example, right now. Potentially.
Yeah, I was, and then, I don't know. I remember you said before you were, I don't know how to put it, you either coach or you either the city, what's the word? You advise the city commissioners or you advise the county commissioners?
No, I have been a educational trainer for the Florida Association of Counties.
Oh,
Or, I've worked with them since 1986. And I've been involved in, they have a formal education program
mhm.
on roles, duties, responsibilities. They have 3 or 4 different level of classes. And I was telling Ken just before, one of the things I've done since 2000 is after this election in November, and I do part of their new commissioner orientation for that process. And that is a non-paid role. They cover my transportation and hotel. That's it. But I've been doing that training since they started their program. And it was either 96 or 98. I've been working with that group since 1986 when they had circuit riders in the state of Florida.
And then one last question.
Sure.
I was just surprised that no one else wanted to be chair, vice chair. I thought Joy would have made it a great chair, but if y'all
That
good,
was
I'm
like-
good. But yeah.
No, I
That's it.
appreciate all the work that goes into the position. I am happy.
I think you nominated Mr. Hall. didn't you?
I don't know.
Or
I
maybe
think-
somebody.
I think Janet. may have
Janet did,
nominated
okay.
Mr.
But
Hall.
yeah. No, too much work goes into that.
Can I go to James first?
Yeah.
James?
I was just wondering, do you have our plan, like our work
Yeah.
plan on hand? I can't find it in my email. Would you mind pulling that up so we can take a look at it as potential topics? Thank you.
Can I ask a question? on
Sure.
that?
Oh, it's small.
It sounds like special improvement districts are great. Here's my question. Are special improvement districts a patch on a problem or do they fix the problem?
I think that depends on your point of view.
I
Uh,
haven't, I just haven't.
Yeah, you know, the thing that's always tough
I do
when you're elected public policy
Yeah.
commission is a future committee, a future commission can always reverse
Yeah,
decisions that's been made. And to me, and somewhere, because I know one of the trainings I've actually got it, but the road systems are so great in the counties, and the counties get a lot of the blame for it.
Yeah.
And part of it is the priority system on where they fall in that. So to me, it's always made me wonder if a community development district, which is, or a homeowners
Mhm.
association, although Ramon brought up a good
Yeah,
point today, that
they fall
homeowners
apart.
associations can come and go rather quickly. But it seems that to me that one of the issues, and there's a whole variety of issues involved in road maintenance, I believe. But one of the issues that the county gets is all the heat. When they're partially responsible because they allowed the development, but it's become really unsustainable. And it's good to hear this specialized district thing, even if that's the approach they took. To me, it's important because at least someone's going to be collecting some money rather
Yeah.
than just turning road.
that definitely sounds like a good at least
Mhm.
patch.
So,
And that, I guess, goes back to my question that I'm probably asked in every meeting, which is the concurrent road development that was taken out of the county plan.
concurrency,
Yes, that allows the approval of,
so that was taken out of the state planning
State.
effort in Florida, correct?
Yeah,
Concurrency
correct,
on
yeah,
roads.
and could Alachua County put it into their plan? So that things can't just get approved that don't have road access? Or they won't cause massive damage to what's currently armed?
It's theoretically, yes. I mean,
But they'll never.
the county commission could implement road concurrency again if they wanted to. There's certain rules and ways you have to do that under the statute, but yes, they could do that.
But it's not likely to.
I can't speculate on what the county commission might
I
want to
understand.
do, but yeah.
Well, and being, correct me if I'm wrong, but even in the state plan that we're running into problems, because the way I remember it, the grades were A through E or F or G or something like that. And one of the alternatives, and what a lot of the counties ended up doing, if it was a B level, which would have been the second highest, and they started having more road trips and stuff like that, and the costs were up, they just says, we're gonna lower concurrency down to level C or D.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely happening. And, another thing that was happening too is that when concurrency was implemented, it would end up driving development more out into the rural areas because the urban areas, those levels of service would get down to a failing level. And then so a developer would have to go out into the rural area to find a road that was on a, meeting the level of service standards in order to develop. So it's kind of, it produced some unintended consequences.
Doesn't really cause a fix necessarily.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the reason why Alachua County eliminated transportation concurrency about a decade ago, in addition to the statute getting rid of it as well.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay. James is pulled up now.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Regina, also for giving me a paper copy again. I did have a follow-up question, I'm sorry, about the road thing.
Okay,
Is there any way that the county could retroactively charge, I guess, certain, like, I don't know, it would be politically probably unsavory, but like any HOAs that did fall apart or like let's say that there's an HOA that is intact, could they identify those groups as special improvement districts and then kind of retroactively ask them to
I guess not.
pay taxes? Or just start paying taxes if they're not, is there any way they couldn't be grandfathered in?
I don't know, and I suppose you'd have to ask a county-based attorney.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd want to look into that a little bit more, but I mean, special assessment districts or special improvement districts, I mean, the county commission can establish those at any point, I believe, for whatever area. It has to go through a public hearing process and residents have to be notified. But yeah, let us look into that a little bit more and see if we can give you a better answer.
Okay. Because I mean, there are a number of huge developments that have these county
Yeah.
Roads that maybe if they were starting to pay taxes or starting to pay special funds towards those roads, it'd be
And
help us
typically,
out.
the special assessment districts typically are only going to improve the roads within the boundaries of that
Yeah.
development. They're not necessarily gonna improve the roads immediately outside of the development, which are normally the county roads where there's the problems. So,
Yeah, just anything that would take maintenance off of the
Yeah.
roles of the county.
yeah,
Be helpful.
But wouldn't it be usually charge HOA fees to fix their own roads and stuff like that?
yeah, and I think Ramon mentioned that about the county considering requiring homeowners associations to have these special assessment districts up front with the approval of the subdivision, so they would maintain their own internal roads. You'd have that mechanism right at the beginning of the subdivision to maintain the roads going forward. So that obviously that helps for the internal subdivision roads, but it doesn't really deal with the overall major roads, the county road system.
Does the county also take over responsibility for stormwater management systems inside the subdivisions, or does that stay with the subdivisions, homeowners associations?
That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, do you know, Ken?
I think it's the HOA's responsibility. They own that land.
Just as an aside, that's an issue that they're dealing with statewide, as those stormwater systems aren't being maintained. And they're trying to do rulemaking right now to make sure that they get maintained, but they're not doing it retroactive. It's for future, for new
Yeah.
permits. That's the way it is now, but okay, I was just curious. I'd never heard that the county took those over, so I assumed it's state.
You do recall that the county has a stormwater fee that is not a tax, is added in addition to your ad valorem tax on your bill now.
But I think that's for the county's stormwater system.
I live in a private gated community where we maintain our own roads, our own system, but yet I have to pay that, and I don't have any water going anywhere other than in the retention pond in front of my house.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that fee is to pay for county stormwater basins.
Right,
For
the
example,
water that runs off the roadways
Correct,
and yes,
correct,
parks. Parks and county facilities.
Okay, other questions? Okay, James, you ready to go back to the,
Yeah, what do we want to talk about? I would love to talk about 2A around now that we're in the growing season, and there's been a lot of talk about aggregation sites around the county for local agricultural products and redistribution. I know that the city kind of hit a wall on food access within Gainesville, but I wonder if there's, I don't know who we would talk to learn a little bit more about what the county might be doing. But that's something that I'm interested in general
so
always.
could I ask a question for clarification? Would you like to hear if the county has any interest in funding a study, since there's not been one done for a while? And I think the last one that was done was paid mainly out of private. I want to say it was done by Alachua County Farm Bureau, but I'm not 100% positive. Is that the question you're asking? If the county has any interest in funding a study that would show the scope and size of agriculture in Alachua County?
Well, I think that the county has been working on that, not necessarily a study, but trying to get that map together of farm related businesses and I'm not sure, yeah. I'm kind of more interested in county effort towards redistribution of things produced locally. Like there was mention of like a slaughter facility
Right.
and aggregation site for local produce or value add. I don't know exactly where this was mentioned, so I'm trying to remember.
So
I
the
just know
slaughter,
producers who,
the way my memory is, the slaughter facility was a discussion that we had with Sean and Commissioner Prizia and
oh, I was not
Dr.
there.
Hutchins.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought we talked about this before.
And
Okay.
I believe that Commissioner Prizia has sort of been the lead commissioner on that. I know Cindy Sanders has been involved with it as well.
Okay,
And she's probably the best person to update us on
yeah,
kind of the current economics of.
So we had a
Non-
presentation, right, on that.
They
I was
came up
absent
there
from
and
the meeting, I
brought
just
a
realized.
presentation.
Yeah,
Non-industrial ag or something like that. Local ag, I know like new farmers markets are coming in and. Alachua seems, or Archer seems to have now a weekly farmers market as opposed to ad hoc farmers market.
Oh, wow.
every Tuesday.
Wow, great. I didn't know.
But I do think there are updates. My guess is the extension office is probably the best bet on
No, they don't really know much. Just
I'm not sure
because,
anybody does.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we don't know. So maybe a study would be in order. But I am sorry that I wasn't there for that meeting that Commissioner Presidio presented at, and but maybe we could add that to Cindy's list for next month.
Or
Broadband and-
honestly, the person who runs the program over at UF now. And she could be asset probably. I know, I think they still do a statewide study, so they have some generic information for the county. But you know, the model they run over at UF is called implant.
Right.
So it generates things like employment numbers, full and part-time combination. It talks about the taxes, some of the taxes and things like that. They're well versed in the concept of economic leakages and exports and how that grows the economy differently and faster than if you've got a basic service where you export goods and bring new dollars back in.
Do you think they would give us a presentation next month if we asked?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you right now. So I'm working with Dr. Cord right now on a big study in Miami-Dade County on the future of their ag area down there. And right now, I do know because of Ian, that implant group is worked to death because of the hurricane and the federal disaster damage and stuff like that. She could do it.
But maybe next.
Yeah, and we can get it in, and you know, it depends, you know, if you want to have it, again, this is what I use. So if we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, we have a 5-person local economy, the 5-0 setting around this way, and we each have $5 and we all do laundry. So I give Jeannie my $5 to do the laundry, and then she gives $5 to Janet to do the laundry and pass it around. When we get all back around, the size of the economy is still $25. The 5 of us on $5. But if we could export that to or bring a new person who wants to buy that service in, so we add you, but you're out external to our local economy. We pass all around, but when we get done, you're the last one out. You're new to the economy, so the 5 of us has $30 instead of 25. You know, so it depends how deep you want to get in some of these subjects. But I'm sure the implant group and Dr. Cord at some point in time would be more than happy to try to meet with us.
Great.
If we wanted to.
Yeah, I'd love to get in touch with them when it's convenient for them.
And I can check with her. In fact, I think I may have a Zoom meeting with her this week or next week when she thinks that the hurricane stuff is going to start tapering off.
How do you spell your last name?
Court, Court, Krista.
Court,
is her first name.
Court, okay.
And she's been around now for 5 or 6 years, but she's taken over the economic impact analysis and food resource economics.
Okay.
She replaced Dr. Hodges.
Okay.
Yeah, I know on the land conservation, they was talking about, you know, having more awareness as well, but it might be like through the same people with the University of Florida. So, I can't think of her name. She's on the board, but I think she's, I can try to get her information though. And she works with the UF agriculture. But I can see if she has any information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that last part of it, James, just, and this is my memory, so someone feel free to correct me if I think I'm wrong. It says, including procure or recommend completion of economic impact study. I believe that Cindy sort of brought that up when we got in discussion because it's been quite a while since one's been done.
Right. Yeah.
And that one, I would think that would either go and county staff needs to chime in on that. That would either go to maybe the economic development group in the county. Or I know sometimes on this, and her role has changed, but Gina Peoples gets involved, sometimes a lot in special
Okay.
projects and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, and from the county staff, I think Sean McClennan's probably the good place to start.
Yeah.
And we also, I'll remind the group, my memory is that, remember that small farmer grant program they had last year, only 5,000, they ended up with 37 applications, which was a lot in a short period of time. I think it might be worthwhile to get Sean back sometime and say, what are you going to do about, grow that, build that forward, make it a little bit larger, make more available. That might be a potential topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Put that up.
What kind of outcomes do it have?
Yeah,
Right. Other ideas on thoughts for potential next meeting besides the follow-up with the things we weren't able to accomplish today on broadband?
Can you have approved minutes?
Oh, thank you. Okay,
that would.
we didn't approve the minute.
Oh.
From last.
We went right to new business. So we'll do that before we get there. So any last second thoughts?
Just far as, I mean, it's probably off topic, but I want to go back to the training. I want to know if it's open to the public, and if not, I want to know if there's some kind of way I can come to one of them, or if you still want to. But I know that's off topic or whatever.
Oh, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything else they want to?
It might be nice for us to attend the October 25th meeting. Because I think that's just generally a good meeting for all of us to attend with the amendments of the land development code. I think it's gonna be a pretty big meeting on that for the Board of County Commissioners. But anyway, just like updating from, just like hearing an update from that meeting might be good too.
Okay, other suggestions? Let's go back to the minutes. And sorry for skipping over that. Trying to get Ramon in and out efficiently, but the minutes were distributed to you. Is there any addition or correction? And if not, indicate I would accept the motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Second,
It had been moved by Janet, accepted by Mr. Baines. To approve the minutes, is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the same sign. Okay, that passes. And then just to ask Mr. Baines' question, answer Mr. Baines' question, so everybody here's my answer to it. So the Florida Association of Counties has a arm called I believe it's called the County Institute of Government. And they do a basic training, an advanced Commissioner Training 1, an advanced Commissioner Training 2, and a new Commissioner orientation. Those are all run by that entity. There's a charge to it. And I believe the requirement is you have to be a county commissioner to it.
Oh, okay.
And they do those statewide, and they also do them at a lot of their conferences. So they're not local.
Okay.
They do have one local coming up in the Alachua County area. But it's an advanced commissioner class, I believe.
Okay.
So, any other questions? Well, we want to welcome the new members, and it will build into a routine, and we usually have some lively discussion and some interesting topics we're looking at. We thank you for your interest and look forward to working with you over the next year. If not, Larry, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if not, anyone want to move for adjournment?
move to adjourn meeting.
Okay, it's been moved, second.
A second.
Okay, moved by James, seconded by Jordan, that we adjourn any discussion. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that passes unanimously.